Like a good neighbor. Wait a minute, that's the wrong company. Is the Big 12 in good hands? There we go. That's the right one. Is the Big 12 in good hands with Allstate? And will they be protected from chaos, like getting teams poached by the SEC? Man, there's all kinds of metaphors we could use with this one, Josh. And will private equity come and save the day for the Big 12? What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to this live edition of Couz's Corner. I'm proud to be joined by a friend of the show, Mr. Josh Neighbors from over at Crystal Ball College Football, part of the 365 Sports Network. Josh, go ahead, and most people know you already, but go ahead and tell them everywhere else they can find you.
The Big 12 Watch at Josh Neighbors _personal at NWPod 365 for the Big 12 Watch 5 days a week. Oh, well, it's going to be 5 days a week during the actual season. Right. Over at Crystal Ball College Football, Bleacher Report sometimes, Morning Mayhem on 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, Arkansas as well. I'm all over the place.
Awesome. Busy man.
Yes.
Josh and I have been trying to collaborate for a while now, and our schedules just never line up. He's busy. Yeah. I'm busy. We both do this. We both have other jobs, so sometimes it's not easy to coordinate. First off, how you been? Before we get into the media content,
I've been I'm good. Life is all over the place, as it always. I got a Subaru Outback. It's been repaired 3 times.
Oh my gosh!
I'm reading stuff about the Allstate 12. I'm working a 4-hour radio show at 6 a.m., which I feel like I'm getting worse at waking up for. Wow. So life's all over the place, but it's good. It's good. Busy is good, and been busy.
Good deal. Well, it's great to see you, man. Be glad when I see. I know you're putting content out now, but it'll be cool when we can get back to 5 days a week. May not be easier for you, but your audience will enjoy
football. Makes it easier. If we once we get the football and honestly talking season 2, it'll be a lot easier.
Yeah. And by the way, for those of you who are watching on X, I want to shout you out as well. Sometimes I forget about those folks. If you're watching on X, we thank you for joining the show. If you want to check out our other content, our past content, and our stuff that's not live, go over and check us out on YouTube at Couz's Corner. I also have a website, couzscorner.com. Some of you may not realize a lot of West Virginia content over there by myself and some other writers. So anyway, let's talk about the news of the day. Two major stories, both surrounding the Big 12 and their future. The first one, Josh, and I want to get your take on it. Dennis Dodd was, I guess, the first to report the Big 12 is looking to partner with a private equity firm called CVC, I believe is the name of it, CVC Capital, to potentially let them invest some money into the conference, maybe even take up 10 to 20% ownership in the league to help basically give them close the gap, I guess is for lack of a better term, with the Big Ten and the SEC. So what are your thoughts on that? Does it scare you? Do you think it's needed? What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm glad you brought me in, as you know, a private equity expert, as I sit here with my fake Batch Rock and a Bucky's t-shirt. So I've tried to understand. I've tried to think on my own about why private equity would want to get involved. Mm-hmm. And I try to read, and I try to understand as much as I can. And live sports, especially football, is a very valuable property in this country because football, number one sport in this country is pro football. Number 2 is college football. Mm-hmm. So it makes sense why companies would want to be involved. And as the sport has progressed, I think particularly the big thing is NIL, right? Because there's a big part of me that if all this was happening without the players getting some piece, it would feel really gross. It feels gross, like saying private equity and like West Virginia football in the same sentence feels odd, right?
It's nuts. Yeah.
And so think about like I think this company is from Luxembourg, right? I think it's like a Luxembourg-based company. So imagine a Luxembourg-based company comes in, is involved now in West Virginia football, and let's just say, take Garrett Green. Just let's go with him as quarterback. Is not seeing a dollar in any way, shape, or form. You'd be like, this is bad. This is not what we want it to be. And honestly, like, players should be getting a piece, totally separate thing. But that's kind of my first thought is none of this is happening on NIL. So NIL has kind of made this takeoff, I think, more acceptable, if you will. The next piece of it to me is, okay, where is the return on investment for a company And the way I'm thinking about this, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, is that if the media deal skyrockets and the Big 12, because they become more competitive and because they're a bigger part of the conversation, it's like, yeah, you can't have college football without the Big 12. Their next media deal is going to be a good one, right? I mean, it's probably going to be a decent one as it is, but still probably a gap. Well, if private equity helps them bridge the gap, the competitive gap, and people want to watch Big 12 teams play football, and the Big 12 needs to be there to have a, like, hey, you can't have college football without the Big 12. If we get more TCUs, if you will, right, from a year and a half ago, if we get more instances where the Big 12 is not just in the conversation, but beating teams like Michigan, who, mind you, most of that Michigan team went on the next season to win a national championship. If we get more instances like that, the Big 12's value rises. So if you're private equity, I think your calculus here is we want a piece. If we can help them get to where everybody else is, then we'll be in pretty good shape. And, I know we've talked about markets so much, right? Oh yeah, good media markets. What's a good media market? Well, look at the SEC. We're not in hubs, Fayetteville, Arkansas. A lot of people there, but not a hub, right? Oxford, Mississippi, not a hub. Tuscaloosa, Alabama, not a hub, but they've built up, good brands, are part of good conferences. And so that's why people want to watch them play. So if the Big 12 can carry that forward and still be competitive and close that gap, that's why private equity would want to be involved. Because it's obvious why the Big 12 would want more money, because there's a gap. Yeah. My big question, though, is where's the value for a private equity firm to come in? That's been my always big question. I think that's where it is. But like most investments, that's a risk. I mean, there's no guarantee the Big 12 will be as competitive.
Right. And I think, first off, I'll touch on the risk piece, and then I'll go into, talking about something Dennis Dodd said in his article. But the risk, in my opinion, the Big 12 is in a situation right now to where they don't have a lot of options. And beggars can't be choosers type scenario. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Use whatever metaphor you want to use, man. But I just think, and I know DP, I see DP in the chat, long time or loyal listener to the show, and I appreciate it. But he and I disagree on this topic. I think he's had some personal experiences with private equity that haven't gone so well, so he has a whole different view of this thing. But I'm just of the opinion that, man, the Big 12's got to do something. I mean, they can't just do nothing. You do nothing, you're moving backwards.
You don't know if you don't try.
Exactly. And Brett Yormark actually has a history with this company, apparently. So to me, that's a plus. He knows them, has a relationship. And this company's been around a while, is my understanding. I haven't dug into them deeply, but they have been around a while. And I think that all private equity can't be bad. I know a lot of people look at private equity as a bad, like you said, it almost sounds like a dirty word when you, especially.
Well, there was that joke with Florida State, the Saudi Knolls, right? Right. Here comes the Saudi wealth fund to help Florida State.
And some people have even said, hey, this is going to be like like the live golf thing where you're letting, but I think we have to trust Brett Yormark here. And I know a lot of people don't like that and think he's too out there with his ideas maybe, but man, the Big 12 needed that, in my opinion. I mean, they were dying on the vine. They had a fresh thinking, outside the box thinking. And I just think you've got to do something. And I think this is one way you can neutralize it. Now, one of the arguments is, hey, within the SEC and Big Ten is just going to turn around and do the same thing. I don't think they will, honestly. And maybe they do. I don't know. But still, if you're the first one out of the gate, to me, you do have somewhat of an advantage. And you were talking earlier about the return on investment. In Dennis Dodd's article, he talked about, and I don't know if I buy this or not, Josh. I'll see what you think. But he talked about when CVC came and talked to the Big 12 back in this, early in the spring in Dallas during their spring meetings, that they basically said that the Big 12, and I don't know if it was the Big 12 that said this or CVC, but they see it doubling in value.
Right.
And I don't remember what the time frame was, if it was 10 years or next media deal or whatever. But with all the talk out there about these media companies bleeding money, I don't know. I don't know if I buy that doubling in value. Do you believe that?
It's an interesting point. It's an interesting point because, and this is again one of those variables. So let's the Big 12 part of this. I think a lot of people in the chat have identified this too. You got to try something, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a gap. We know there is a gap. I've gotten comments. I'm sure you've gotten comments too. This team is just as good as, okay, say what you want, but the TV companies have valued our great league at this dollar figure. So that is the reality. I think what I see too with this, and Brett Yormark is a huge part of this, is that the open for business comment, it's no surprise 2 stories about the Big 12 came out in the same day. One about them partnering with Allstate, one about them with the CVC. And guess what? It might end up being a different private equity firm, and it might be a different insurance company. Hell, it could be Buc-ee's for all we know. It becomes the Buc-ee's 16 or whatever it is. But if you read the articles and you read kind of pieces about it, the description is that, obviously some folks in the Big 12 are pitching this. They're pitching, the source in the Big 12 are pitching what the vision is, what it looks like, what the goals are, what the ideas are, and why it could be valuable for said company. I think I saw one today too. Conference USA. I think Ross Dellinger had this. Yep. I forgot the Globe Life interest in the Conference USA. So your point about, hey, other conferences do this. Yes, it's good. But I think being the first one there is important. And once again, all of Brett Yormark's ideas are not going to hit. The Mexico idea right now, to me, you could, if you want to call it a failure, you could call it that because they're having to put that on hold. You'd say if you want to. Yeah. But this is why having a guy who's not a college sports guy, he's not a football guy. He doesn't like it. I'm not even sure he likes college football, to be honest. That's probably a good thing. Yep. You want somebody with different ideas, different thoughts, different takes, on this. And it's actually a good marriage because you've got all the ADs who have to approve, presidents, the board of trustees, whatever, the Big 12, like those college entrenched folks have to approve all this stuff. This is not executive orders, to borrow a political term. It's not like, hey, we're doing an executive order on climate change. You can't just do that. You can't just do that when you're the Big 12 commissioner. You have to have approval. So I think it's that meeting in the middle, right? Where it's the folks in the Big 12 taking your Yormark idea and being like, all right, we're good with this. Let's push it. And so I think for the Big 12 side, that's where I like it. The part where it gets like Looney Tunes is the other side of it, right? Where does this go? Who offers it the big money next time? What does ESPN even look like? Disney, it's funny because Disney has all of their entertainment properties that might be bleeding cash, so a Star Wars show, they pump X amount of dollars into. A Marvel show, they pump X amount of dollars into. That sucks and does not give them the return on investment, the subscriptions they want, could affect how Disney spends money on the rights to college football. So you're right. Like, what does that even look like in a few years when we're talking about that too? That's what makes this a risk. It makes it a big risk. But for the Big 12, I think it's one worth taking. Yeah, if your media valuation doesn't go up and somebody owns 20% of your ass, you have to pay up, right? And it's part of the deal. They get 20% of whatever whatever you're bringing in. So for Big 12 schools, I think it's a good risk because we're in a really tumultuous time. And if you don't make that push right now and you don't show that you're competitive, what's stopping the Big 10 and the SEC from being like, we don't need everybody else? We really don't. We're going to create our super league. Now, I don't think it's a great idea, but what's stopping them from going out on their own and doing something else? So the Big 12, and I think actually the ACC to some extent as well too, needs to do whatever they can to close that gap. And I think for the longest time, facilities, the army of polos, the guys on the side, I know they're limiting support staff now, but like that support staff, man, has made a difference. Saban was the first one to do it. It's not just Saban, it's his ideas that have gotten Alabama so far ahead. Their NIL has actually been behind, but because he's been on the forefront of so much other stuff, he's put them as a program ahead. So it's stuff like that where it's like, all right, how do you make sure you compete? And I actually think for the Big 12's credit, they've got a lot of really smart coaches. So when you give more funds to smart people at their disposal, and actually people who are like, all these guys have had to do more with less. All right, what does it look like when they actually get more? Are they able to be more efficient? Are they able to bring more to the table? But we have to give those folks the resources to make it happen. I think KU football is a good example of this, right?
Yep.
All right. Well, we know we actually have a guy who can make us relevant again. We're building a new stadium. We're putting more in NIL. We're keeping guys like Devin Neal on campus. So like even in small things like that, that's more funds being pumped into a program. And that's showing up, in my opinion, with the new stadium, with the talent they have, all that kind of stuff. So give smart folks more resources. Typically they can deliver to you.
Yeah.
So I think that's where my positivity would come from, but my negativity would be like such a tumultuous time. And also it's obviously a risk because if you don't get a better media deal, you still owe that 20% to somebody.
Yep. Agreed. And it could, and let's face it, it could go to hell in a handbasket. And these teams the Big 12 could end up folding because of this thing. But what's the other alternative? You get past, you're already 60, 70, whatever $1 million behind. That's not going to help you. And you got to, some of the comments I'm seeing are, well, the big, like I mentioned earlier, the Big 10 SEC are just, if they catch them, they're just going to do the same thing and they've got even more resources. Well, it's all about how you manage it. How creative can Brett Yormark and the Big 12 be in the kind of deals they cut? Can they find, because what this does, it gives them access to CVC, the capital firm, investment firm's resources, and their other partners, right? They have access to all of that. So how creative can they be? I don't know. Again, that's way above my pay grade. But
well, think about it too. Like if they use the Kansas example, that money for a new stadium and whatnot is coming from donors.
Mm-hmm.
And if you say, okay, well now you've got more funds just on hand, more of that money for a new stadium can come from the actual school itself. And so that frees up donors, and once again, I know NIL is about to change, but that frees up donors to give more money to an NIL collective, to try and keep. So like that is the way in which, things can be traded is, okay, school's got more cash. I can focus my money onto other, if I'm a KU donor, okay, I'm not, building concession stands on a new stadium. I'm now paying the next Devin Neal, the next Jalen Daniels, the next, Jacoby Bryant to stay on campus and to play for my school. So I think that is where Big 12 schools, having to do more with less. Yeah, that's what we're staring down right now. How can we make sure it's not the case as much? And how can we basically give folks who have been doing more with less, more resources, and so they can do more with more, if you will.
Agreed. Before we get any further, I want to remind everybody, if you want to make sure your comment gets read, make sure I see it, you can drop me a super chat, hit the $sign near the chat box. It highlights your comment, kind of separates it from the others. I'll be sure to read it on air. And it's also a way you can support my work here and help keep the lights on, as I like to say. Also, want to remind you, if you want to support me for free, all you have to do is hit the like button. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet here on YouTube, and obviously the comments that you guys are putting in the chat helps a lot as well. And if you're watching it on the replay, comments help there as well, as do likes. And share it with your friends and let them know. Real quick, I want to give a shout out to my sponsor before we get too far along in this thing. Dutch Miller Automotive Group. This episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Ford, Hyundai, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. All right. Now, the next part of this is, I kind of joked at the beginning, Big 12 is going to be in good hands with Allstate. That's because another article came out today. I think it was Pete Thamel maybe that broke this one, or Ross Dellinger one. Not sure.
A lot happening on the feed today. A lot happening on the X/Twitter feed.
Exactly. And I was busy today with my daughter touring, or not touring, but doing an orientation for college.
That's
at Marshall,
exciting.
At Marshall of all places. But anyway, it was a fun day, exciting day. But anyway, so I wasn't able to keep up with all of it. I was checking my feed as I could, but anyway, it looks like the Big 12 is looking to sell the naming rights of the league to a corporate sponsor. And it could be called, like you mentioned earlier, the All-State 12 or the Big All-State or whatever. It looks like All-State 12 was the most likely scenario here. And I think, according to Brett McMurphy, who put out a few more details about it later in the day, he said it was around a $50 million, probably a $30 to $50 million deal. Sounds like a lot, but if you do the math, it's only about $2 to $4 million a team. So that doesn't sound like a whole lot. But again, I guess in this day and age, every million counts, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's over a 5-year period, talking about $10+ million.
Correct.
And I love the Big 12. I think the logo is cool. I enjoy the logo. I saw DraftKings do a thing today. It was like, hey, if you give us 25,000 likes, we'll sponsor it. And it was the 12 logo with the DraftKings crown hanging off the side of it. And I see folks saying, hey, like, this is not the college sports we love. We're all in the same boat on that.
Mm-hmm.
But that ship's kind of sailed. You know what I mean? I mean, if you fight it all you want to, complain all you want to, but this is the new day and age we're living in. And to be honest, Couz, I'm shocked that we haven't had. I'm shocked we haven't had stuff on the field already. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked we have not had sponsors on helmets or jerseys. I thought the Big 12 would be first to that. I know it's allowed now, and I expect that everybody should be doing that. I know Fall Island Fieldhouse is a storied venue, but put Love's Travel Stop on there. Put Quick Trip, on the court if you want to. Whatever kind of helps you, every dollar, every cent. Now, once everybody starts doing it, it's going to be, it's like, all right, well, what are we doing at this point, right? But I mean, if you can right now, make that money.
Agreed, and still, I mean, if it helps you pay that $20 million a year to your players, you got to do what you got to do, and it may be the difference in, people talk about these moves and how they don't like it. What you don't got to realize is these Big 12 and ACC schools, and even the lower level, the G5 schools, are even more so are at risk of losing athletic programs here. I mean, you're talking about schools having to drop athletic programs. And if they can bring in a private equity firm, or if they can bring in a corporate sponsor, and it helps another kid get a scholarship that may not get one, how is it not worth it? That's how I look at it. You got to look at this big picture. Take our eyes off the tradition, take our eyes off the just football, and look at big picture of these institutions and what they're there to do. They're there to provide education for people. And it doesn't matter whether they're football players or not, right? And the more scholarships you can offer, the more programs you can have, the more people you can get to your school. It's all part of the equation here. And I think they're just doing whatever they have to do to continue to do that and continue to fulfill their mission as universities. Yeah,
I mean, Nick Saban, he said it too. The football is the front porch.
Yep,
that's what gets folks in. And so, I think there's this line that schools have to toe is like, at what point do we become a corporate sponsor? And I think a lot of schools are so far from that, so you're good to go right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the line between how to be creative with the sponsorships and whatnot, and also maintaining your identity.
Correct.
Those that's the line you have to toe. But because my big thought has always been this, and this kind of applies to the Super League idea of like college football is regional. If you go away from that, you have to understand you are not like college football is not the highest level of football, and the NFL is the most popular sport in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it was 40 some million people watched Kansas City, not one of the top markets in the country, take on Buffalo this year in a playoff game. So like people watch it no matter what. It is the sport in this country.
Yep.
And so you have to make sure you do like what makes college football great is regionality. Football is the number one part of this, but also the regionality part of it too. So if you say West Virginia, you say K-State, you say KU can't take on those big schools, why should folks care about that? And I'm from Virginia. I work in Arkansas now, right. But in our part of the country, because I'm sure some folks who went to James Madison, you know, and I know some folks who went there, and honestly, hey, you know, they'll watch major college football, sure, but back when they were in FCS school, they kind of cared more what was happening with Villanova and Richmond and, you know, at North Dakota State, because that's the kind of stuff that would affect what would happen to JMU football. And so if you start making, you know, these Power 5 schools be FCS schools in that sense, why should a West Virginia fan care about what's happening in an Alabama game if it's not in the same league anymore? You know what I mean? If you're a fan of, you know, an MLS team like DC United, why would you care about what's happening with Chelsea or Arsenal, whatever like that? Because you're not in the same league. You know what I mean? It's top level, sure, but like, why do you care what's happening with Barcelona and Real Madrid if you really just care about your MLS team? So that's what I think you have to be careful with when you approach the sponsorship stuff, and you approach anything with college football. You have to maintain some regionality to make sure the sport still maintains what makes the sport great, and why people actually care about it.
Well said. Well said. Real quick, I want to recognize a channel member here, Timothy Green, who's a VIP member, paid VIP member. He says, personally, I think this is a great move for the Big 12. I think there's more pros than cons to this, in my opinion. Thank you, Timothy, and thank you for all the support. But yeah, that's another way you can support the channel, guys. Become a VIP member. Hit the join button, either below on the screen, or it's on my channel homepage, right beside my profile photo. But anyway, you know, we get picked on. The Big 12 gets picked on about being the truck stop conference, right? And we've kind of embraced it. We joke about it. We make fun of ourselves, right? Why not take advantage of that, man? Like you said, go get Love's Truck Stops or Buc-ee's or somebody. To me, that's perfect. That is the perfect fit right there. Embrace it. You know, and let the SEC people laugh at us. Who cares? They're going to do that anyway, right? It's already happening. I've had people, 2 or 3. I know two Alabama fans that one of them is a friend of mine, and the other one is someone who I consider a friend of the show, already making fun of the Big 12 on X, you know, saying one of them said we should get Charmin as our sponsor. I mean, just they're going to make fun of us. It is what it is. Take advantage of it. Capitalize on it, whatever you can do. And I think that's what Brett Yormark's going to do, whether it's Allstate, whether it's whoever. I think they'll figure out a way to capitalize on this thing. I'm just wondering, Josh, and you may know this. I thought I read in one of the articles that it only takes a majority vote of the presidents to pass. Is that true, or does it have to be unanimous, or do you know?
I think it depends on what the thing they're trying to get accomplished is. So I think, like, for adding members of the league, it needs to be a unanimous type deal. I would assume that kind of still true. I don't know about when it comes to business side of things, right? So it, needs to be unanimous. But like it's like with Texas A&M, when Texas wanted to join, they were the one school that was fighting it, but they fell in line just like everybody else does. Yep. And there's cause to fall in line because there will ultimately be pressure from boosters and folks who are financially invested in the university, and they know that this is more money. If they put in a lot of money, they want to see more money coming from other places. And so if you deny that, you're typically going to be in a bad spot if you're an administrator. Yep. At least that's my read on how usually college things go. So
agree.
Yeah.
And I don't know where West Virginia's president stands on this issue. If I had to guess, he's probably against it. But again, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't have any connections there that can tell me yes or no. But in the past, West Virginia has pretty much been a more conservative one. But I will tell you this: Ren Baker, our new AD, is a lot more. He's more of an outside the box thinker. He's not afraid to go bigger on things, and he's all about making money for the university. So, he might be on board with this. Who knows? Time may tell. If maybe at Big 12 Media Days there'll be some stuff come out. We can get more information from some of these people. But yeah, because I did in Dennis's article, I think it said there were three presidents like on a subcommittee that are really digging deep into this thing to see if it's should happen or not. So it'd be interesting to see who those three are. But I wish I knew. But anyway, got Scotty B, Phillips 66. Yeah, Phillips 66 has been a long time sponsor of the Big 12. That would
Big 12, Big 12 basketball forever. I mean, they've been there.
But the Phillips 6612, I don't know if that sounds See, here's my opinion, Josh. If you're going to do that, I think you change the name of the league. I think why still use 12 when you have 16 teams? I don't get that part.
Yeah, I think the reason why, well, like, so like you could ostensibly go, hey, the Phillips 66 Big 12, right?
Yeah.
You could call it that. I think the problem you would run into is that people could just shirk that front part and just be like, just call it Big 12. Just call it that, right? So like you kind of almost want it to be synonymous with the brand. Yeah, I mean, they've talked about rebranding for a while. I didn't think it would be this. I didn't think it would be this, where it'd be a sponsor out, just a sponsor straight up. But yeah, I'm kind of interested to see what form that would take shape in.
And as you were talking, I was thinking it through. Their logo right now is basically just a 12. They may not have to change that if they don't. They would have to add, obviously add the logo or whatever in of the new sponsor, but that would be a lot less expensive to do probably than changing everything. I would imagine. So that could be part of it. And two, the identity. They're known as the Big 12. You don't want to take that away. And maybe big is just too broad. I don't know. I don't know what, I'd like to talk to someone on a marketing, with a marketing background. They can, may give their take on that. That'd be interesting to hear from. But yeah, I mean, to me, just call it I don't know, the All-State 16 or whatever. I don't, but again, what if they go to 20 in a year or two? So maybe you can't do that either.
But yeah, it could just be like the All-State Conference. You know what I mean? Something like that, just like something like that, just like that simple.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I saw something on Twitter earlier. A couple different people actually proposed get a deal with Southwest Airlines, call it the Southwest 12 or the Southwest Conference, whatever, because of their ties to the southwestern part of the United States. As a West Virginia guy, obviously I take that as I didn't get offended by it, but I think to me, you're basically excluding at least 3 members of your league if you do that. What would be your thoughts on something like that? Do you think that would be a good idea, bad idea, what?
To do what exactly? Just
partner with Southwest, have Southwest Airlines be the sponsor and call it the Southwest Conference or Southwest 12 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's like this. Well, it's another one of those deals where like you are still based in Texas, right? Like that is the heart of this league is Texas.
Yeah, and I think that was their point. Yeah,
it's Texas, it's Oklahoma, it's Kansas. They have 2 schools in Kansas. They have multiple teams in Texas. And so yeah, I mean, in some ways you are. And like, look, they got 2 schools in Utah now. Utah's not. They got 2 in Arizona. That is Southwest also. So I mean, I think like it does kind of fit them in some way, shape, or form. But we're in an era now where the Atlantic Coast Conference has got SMU, and it's also got it's also got Cal and Stanford. so like the region part of it is
Yeah.
And
I don't know if you can answer this, Josh. You being a media guy, what is your favorite team?
So I grew up a Virginia Tech fan because my father grew up in the southwest part. It's a Christiansburg, Blacksburg area. As my grandparents had season tickets for 45 years to Virginia Tech games. And then I went to Mizzou. So Mizzou and Tech are kind of my 2 big ones, but I'm a Missouri Tiger through and through. It is not, but like I've covered the Big 12. I love the Big 12. You know what I mean? That's the league that when I started working after college at SiriusXM, I was on the Big 12 channel 5 days a week. I've been podcasting about the Big 12 ever since 2020. So I've put thousands of hours into the Big 12 conference, literally thousands of hours into this league. So I love it. That's my league. But teams wise, I grew up a Virginia Tech fan. And then also the Mizzou Tigers are that's where I went to school. So I do support, I do support Mizzou. Yeah.
Thank you. Good question, Timothy. I knew the answer to that question, but I didn't. I figured the audience didn't.
Yeah. I'm not an SEC guy though. Don't call me an SEC guy. The chat. Don't do it. Not an SEC guy.
Yeah, well, with the Missouri, what was
Missouri? I work in Arkansas. I work in Arkansas, and I work in Missouri. So I mean, I get what people would, but yeah, no.
But I was thinking I don't know the time frame here. When you went to Mizzou, were they already in the SEC or were they in the Big 12 already?
Yeah. So 2015 was my freshman year at Missouri. Okay. So
they were already in.
Yeah, a couple of years in the league at that point. Yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense. But again, like Josh said, he's covered the Big 12 for a long time now, so that's become his. I'm sure you
my adopted home.
Exactly.
My adopted home.
Are you going to make it to Big 12 Media Days?
No, I'm not. Dallas for me is pretty easy now because I'm 4.5, 5 hours away from Dallas.
Yeah.
So I went last year, but Vegas, it's just not gonna. I just don't.
Yeah, I'm wanting to go. I'm trying hard to go, but the problem is, I do this, and I'm an independent, so for me to go on this trip, I have to pay for it out of my own pocket,
right?
And it would cost me between flights, hotels. I would have to level up on equipment a little bit in order for me to do a proper show there. From what I have now, it costs a lot of money. So I'm working on trying to get a few sponsors to pay for it. So far, I've had zero luck. The sponsor I just read is not. They're actually. I'm going to be done with them at the end of this month. So their contract is up. So they're not an option. And
And I like Vegas too. I love
Vegas.
I actually love Vegas.
It's one of my favorite cities to visit.
Yeah, but just from a cost standpoint, I think we're not going to be. I don't think we're going to see too many more Big 12 media days in Vegas. I think they knew that because Texas was joining the league, that during the SEC, that Dallas would kind of be the spot this year, just to kind of celebrate them. But I don't think. I don't think SEC will go back there again. I think you're going to see the Big 12 probably back in the Dallas type situation here again shortly.
Yeah, probably so. I mean, Brett Yormark made a comment. There was a scheduling conflict this year with Dallas, for one thing, and that was one of the reasons they had to move it. And he thought Vegas made sense because of the 4 new schools, which I don't necessarily agree with, but it is what it is. That's one of the things he's done. And don't get me wrong, I'm biased. I love Vegas, but from a conference standpoint, I didn't agree with that decision. I thought you should have tried to find somewhere else in Texas to do it. Go to Frisco again, or go somewhere, right? Or
KC, man.
Go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
And I understand Brett likes to move things around. I get that, but try to do it somewhere that's heck, even do it in Nashville. That's kind of in between. At least it's closer. It gets you
right.
Because Nashville's in Western Tennessee, at least it gets you closer to the Big 12 footprint.
Yeah, you kind of wonder, are they going to do Orlando type deal? At some point in time,
that might be okay.
Move
it around. I'm okay with moving it around a little bit, but I hope they don't do it. Like I said, I hope they don't continue to cater to the new schools, because I think they were the ones who requested it, and that's what
I know. Some Pitt folks are in your circle too. If the Big 12 were to end up adding Pitt, which.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you've done a lot of content on that. I want to know about this for you. So I kind of got burned out in the whole realignment thing. I just got to the point where I just really had a difficult time continuing to talk about it, just because it took up so much bandwidth, so much space. And from the ACC point of view, I know that's what we're all waiting on, but like, I have yet to see a reasonable proposition about Clemson and FSU and UNC and Miami, or whoever else they want to get leaving the league. I've not seen a kind of like a way they can do it, because when Texas and Oklahoma left, there were 3 years left on the contract, and they got out. I think it was a year early, right? Because it actually, yeah. Okay, so it's that, and you add a decade. That's what the ACC is dealing with right now. They've got 10 years, 11 years left now, and they're 12 years. 2024, it's in 2036. I know everybody always says, "Hey, there's a dollar figure somewhere," but like, I'm in sit and wait mode in the ACC, because I honestly don't know, with the way that grant of rights been described to me. Ironclad was the word that's been used to me over and over and over again. And these schools can posture and get angry all they want to, but I just don't see the easy exit. So I've just kind of had to.
Well, here's the thing. Here's my take on it. And I'm with you. I did for a while get burnt out on talking about it. And here's my strategy now. If there's something new out there,
right.
If there's a rumor that comes out and I can, okay, this could lead to this, and I'll maybe talk about the speculation of it or whatever, something different. But if it's just the same thing that I've been talking about for 6 months or a year, there's already 15 other people talking about it. if I can't bring something new to the table, I just don't do it. That's kind of how I approach it.
There's more than one way to skin a cat, but there's not 150 ways, are there?
Correct. Yeah, and as far as the lawsuit between Florida State and ACC, I don't even try to touch that because it is so outside of my purview.
Right.
There's so much legal jargon, and I just like it. It bores me to tears to try to even read that.
I just read Ross Dellinger, and I'm like, here's what Ross Dellinger had to say today. All right, folks, there we go.
Me. That's
it's because Ross is always on top of that stuff.
And I don't know if you know who Greg Flugar is, but he does a great job covering it. Much better than I could. I don't mind talking realignment, but I don't get into the legal stuff. That's when it kind of leaves me.
Yeah.
But as far as and I'm actually glad you segued into that, because someone asked in the chat really early in the show about your thoughts on, do you think we will eventually get those schools? And I guess based on what you just said, you think it's a long shot that the ACC actually does it. You think the ACC is going to stay together, basically?
Yes, I think there is a version of the ACC that will persist forward. What that looks like, I'm not totally sure, because like my dad went to Wake Forest. Wake Forest, I mean, nobody's gonna be knocking on the door for Wake Forest. Syracuse, same boat. Boston College, same boat. I know Georgia Tech's in Atlanta, but like, it's almost like Vanderbilt. I mean, it's not easy to get kids into Georgia Tech. Like getting kids to go to school there's really that's a challenge.
Yeah.
I think about those schools. I think UVA and Virginia Tech are pretty good Big Ten candidates. I think they fit that profile pretty well. Carolina seems like a Big Ten candidate, but like, where's Duke in all this? Like, I haven't seen. If Carolina goes somewhere, Duke's got to be right along with them. What happens to Tobacco Road? And I just feel like, that's one of those rare states where we've actually got 4 colleges that are in major conference. It's Texas is up there, California's up there too, but Carolina's got 4 teams and they're all in the same conference, and they're so entrenched. Those 4 schools are so entrenched together that it'd be just odd to see them, go their separate ways. So if there was a breakup, the obvious candidates to me would be Pitt and Louisville, and then I guess Virginia Tech would be next. Yeah. Right. Because then they kind of get a little block going, in that middle part of the country. Right. So, but I don't know how it's going to shake it. I've just got no idea. I've got no idea.
I think Florida State and Clemson are going to find a way out. If they, Michael Alford, the AD at Florida State, has even said they've even talked to private equity. They might go the private equity route to get out. Because this thing's going to drag on in the courts for so long. They want to get out ASAP so they can try to catch up with the Big Ten and SEC. If you're in court for 3 or 4 years, you've already lost the ground.
Time and money.
Correct. Right. Right. They've already, what is it, $30-40 million, whatever it is, that they've lost ground per year. They're already 30, 100. They're in the 6 figures.
Let's add on some legal fees onto that too.
I'm sorry, 9 figures. Right, 9 figures at that point.
And your buyout gets smaller, but also at the same time, it's still a big. Like we mentioned, still have a decade left on that grant of rights, man. So it's
exactly.
And I saw somebody say 2027 is a plausible time, maybe. Yeah, but let's just say in 2027 we hear some movement on that. They say, all right, we're leaving in 2030. Well, that's still 5 years left, so you're still going to owe a pretty decent chunk.
Yep.
And you're still, like you mentioned, falling behind in that time frame as well.
Yep.
So, I just don't know how to. I just don't know how to quantify this stuff. It's hard to quantify it. Yeah.
And you hear so many. You hear one story that says they're going to end up settling. Then somebody else says no, they're not. The ACC's digging their heels in. They're not going to settle. So who knows what's going to happen at this point?
So why would ESPN let them out? ESPN's got no incentive to let them out. They have their schools on a good deal. So
I do think Clemson and Florida State are going to get out some way, somehow.
Eventually, yes, somehow, yes.
But I do think the ACC is going to survive because, there's just too many teams, and a lot of those teams aren't going to have a home. And if the Big 12 has a chance to grab a few teams, I hope top of my list is Louisville, because I think they're the best cultural fit. They're 3rd or 4th, I think, in viewership in the ACC right now. They're a valuable brand. You've got natural rivalries with West Virginia and especially Cincinnati in the league. And it makes sense geographically to me. And then my second choice would be Virginia Tech if they don't end up in the SEC. Again, geographically, you in Virginia, you get a rival with West Virginia. And I think from a brand value perspective, they might be up. I mean, they're right up there. Once you get past Florida State, Clemson, and Miami, those are the obvious top three. Then I think, Virginia Tech's probably next on that list to me. And obviously, if the Big 12 could get Miami, you got to take them. But I don't think that's happening.
Miami's such a weird school because you don't hear them mentioned at all in this in these talks, right?
Not a lot.
But the thing is, like, they're kind of a Big Ten school in a lot of ways because really good academics. I don't think people realize, like, Miami. But here's the thing about Miami. It's a small private school. Yep. And I remember actually my brother toured Miami. He ended up going to UVA, Virginia. But I remember touring there. The first number one state they draw from is Florida in terms of students. Second and third, I believe, are New York and New Jersey. So it's this weird kind of East Coast mishmash with really good academics, but it's a small private school. So in that way, they're actually not a really good Big Ten fit. And so they're kind of in this weird, but they have good both football and basketball programs as well. So they're kind of in this weird middle ground. And that's kind of where a lot of these schools, I think if you were to say SEC school best fit, Virginia Tech is the SEC kind of best fit. They just have they're not in a very popular place, but they have a ton of fans, And they're in a state where, hey, you've got a major American city in Washington, D.C. There's a lot of Virginia Tech fans there.
Yes.
Like how much, but once again, how much do markets matter if we're going to direct to consumer, right? We're not, we're not about placing. This isn't, hey, Rutgers is coming to the Big Ten because we want to get the Big Ten network in New Jersey and New York City, because guess what? We're on ESPN Plus, Peacock, all those places now. So
I think now it's more about brand than it is about markets.
Yeah.
And UVA's name keeps coming up. And I understand you because they're a flagship school.
They are.
And I know they're good at basketball and they're an
State University, great academics.
Yeah.
Big enough.
But why would they? I'm trying to wrap my head around why a conference would want them over Virginia Tech. I just can't wrap my head around it. But again, I'm not.
The prestige of Virginia. I think it is.
I think
it's got to be. Well, it's got to be it, right? I mean, I just.
Yeah. College presidents love that kind of stuff, man. They
they love it. They
like to be associated with. It's the wine and cheese crowd. I mean, that's
like why UCLA is in the Big Ten now, right?
Yep, it's about the wine and there's college presidents like the people the circles they run in. I call them the wine and cheese crowd, and who they associate with matters to them.
Yeah,
you can say it's an ego thing if you want to,
100%,
whatever. But they're the ones making the decisions. So.
I'm with you on that front 100%.
But I'll be honest with you, though. I think people underestimate, and I'm not saying Virginia Tech's on UVA's level, but Virginia Tech is not a slouch when it comes to academics.
Oh, it's really become a really good school. And honestly, I mean, for me, I kind of wish they even got a broadcast program now too, that started to grow. So, I mean, it's a really good school. It's a beautiful part of the country. And I mean, the TV execs love putting them on in prime time. Like they love it because there is a certain, it's like, hey, it gives you the college football warm and fuzzies, Lane Stadium packed, Enter Sandman, big game. It makes you feel that early 2000s Frank Beamer thing that like, it's such a good embodiment of what college football was and we hope still is.
Yep.
But actually like a lot of things, it's changed. Now I know they're getting back this year. They should have a big year, but yeah, I think that's why.
Yeah, and look, I hate. I'll be honest. I hate Virginia Tech. I just, I live in southern West Virginia, so I can be. I'm only an hour from Blacksburg.
Yeah.
So to me, they were always a bigger rival than Pitt.
That was a nasty rivalry.
Yes, it was
a lot of hatred.
I don't know if people understand. Pitt will always be West Virginia's biggest rival because it's been around longer. The schools are so close together. But here in southern West Virginia, and there are so many Virginia Tech fans in this area. And then there are a lot of West Virginia fans on the Virginia side of the border as well. So it's a very heated rivalry, as you know.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, your grandfather was.
I made a point of going to the last. I went to the game in Morgantown, and I went to the game.
Did you? I wish I'd have known you were there, dude. We'd
I
have
went
hooked
to.
up.
I know. I went to both those games. Man, I had a blast at both. Tech didn't obviously win either of those games, but like,
Yeah.
it was. And I remember my buddy Connor was he went to. That's who I went to Tech games growing up with mostly. And he said, the first place he ever heard the F word was West Virginia Tech game in Morgantown. He's like 3 or 4 years old. And it's like, yeah, that's what that rivalry is. Nasty, mean,
Yep. It is.
Which is great.
So I hate them. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you, but I do know, like I told my daughter one time I said, look, if you ever want to go to Virginia Tech, because at one time she was throwing around the idea of getting into veterinary school.
Yeah.
And they have a great veterinary program. They're one of the best in the country, if I'm not mistaken. I said, look, I'd love for you to, as a dad, I'd love for you to go to Virginia Tech. It's a great school, but I will never wear that ugly maroon and orange, and I will never wear a Virginia Tech shirt.
My dad was like that with Carolina. My dad was like, Carolina's.
Yeah. I said, but I would support you going there, but do not expect me to wear Virginia Tech colors. Now, I bought me a Marshall hat today. I'm perfectly cool wearing Marshall.
Yeah.
But I will not wear Virginia Tech.
Not maroon and orange. I like it. That's what makes it great.
Makes it great. I mean, it's college football, man. Got to give a shout out to Appalachia Africa Twin. $5 super chat. He says, mash that like button, peeps. Thank you, Appalachia Africa Twin, for the super chat and for the reminder for everybody to smash the like button because that helps the algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big game when Marcus Vick flipped the bird to West Virginia fans.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. West Virginia fans are not a fan of Marcus Vick, I can tell you.
Or Mike, probably either.
No, but man, I tell you, he was just so freaking good. You had to give him his props.
Yeah.
Marcus was good, but he was never.
Marcus
he could have went further than he did, but he didn't have his head screwed on straight.
No,
unfortunately, at that point in his life.
Yeah.
Anyway, real quick before I let you go, just talk about the Big 12 real quick. What are your thoughts on the new schools coming in? Are you with everybody else? You think Utah and Kansas State are the teams to beat, or are you? Do you think there's another team out there that's not getting enough attention?
I would go. So I think they are the teams to beat.
Mm-hmm.
I think. So I was looking at FPI the other day, and the ESPN Football Power Index, which is predictive. They have Kansas, I think, with the best chance of winning the Big 12.
Yes, I saw that.
I've made this point a lot. I want to know what you think about this. I like their schedule. Two things, Jalen Daniels. Like, I hate presuming injuries, but like, can I presume he's going to be healthy all year? I don't know. Second thing is they don't play consecutive games in the same state the entire season. Because they're having the new stadium built. They're playing their non-con games at Children's Mercy Park, where the KC, the NWSL team play, and also Sporting KC, the MLS team play. They're playing their conference games at Arrowhead Stadium. And so some schools have back-to-back road. Some schools have back-to-back, or usually if you have back-to-back road, you do have back-to-back home at some point. KU has neither. So I'm wondering, and this might just be weird brain, but like, is there some kind of impact to not being in this, like, maybe it's a rhythm. Hey, here, home, or here, road, home, road, home, road. But I do feel like there's something to not playing, in the same place back-to-back weeks at all. And then obviously Jalen Daniels' health is going to be a huge factor. So that's the first school.
Yep.
Arizona's number 2. I'm not sure how much Arizona you've watched. I think Noah Fafita is like the real deal. If you gave me a vote right now for first team Big 12 quarterback going into the season, it would be Fafita.
Over Cam Rising, really?
Yeah. Well, and the thing about Cam is, he's coming off in it. This is why it's so interesting. So what a weird quarterback, class we have. Like, I've seen Shador mocked top 10. I've seen him mock with even him as number 1. But Colorado's team's not very good. And I don't think he's that good. I think he's good. He's that good. Cam Rising's coming off from what we can understand, even they tried to fake it last year, a major knee. That was a major knee injury, like devastating knee injury. Jalen Daniels, nagging back injury.
Yep.
Avery Johnson, whole lot of potential. And I would even say, like, I think if you were to like, there are probably 7 quarterbacks that if you told me they ended up as the first team Big 12 quarterback at the end of the year, I'd be like, yeah, I could like, and I would put Garrett Green in that group too. I would actually like, I'm a huge fan of how much better he got. I love guys who get better.
Yeah.
Actually reminded me a lot of Brady Cook from Missouri last year. It's just like, oh, he found it. He's, you know, it's like it's something clicked. You can just like, there's a certain moment you're like, wow, this guy is not the guy I thought before. So going into the year, but I mean, if you wanted to say, hey, if he ended up as number 1 Big 12 quarterback, I would say, yeah, it's not shocking. So I'm really I think quarterback play, if one of these guys rises above the rest and is just an absolute superstar, then there's a chance that team might just be everybody else. Cause let's be honest, like pretty fine margin out of the non-Texas teams last year. The margin between victory and defeat was pretty thin in a lot of these games, as West Virginia fans know very well.
Oh yeah.
It was, pretty, the Houston game being a prime example. Margin of victory and defeat was thin. So I've got no idea what the hell's going to happen.
Nobody does.
No clue. Oklahoma State's got like some of the most returning production in the entire country. Yeah. But I'm not going to bet on Alan Bowman. I mean, I want to bet on Gundy, but Alan Bowman's like, you couldn't do better than that this year.
I'm actually glad you brought that up. That was going to be my next question. That is that, and I think I heard I think it was Craig today on the show talk about that might be the hardest team because Vegas has them at 7.5 wins. They were a 10-win team, and they're bringing back basically everybody, with the exception of Jaden Bray's at West Virginia now, and maybe 1 or 2 others. Everybody else is back, including Ollie Gordon, including Colin Oliver on defense.
Yeah, Colin Oliver, yeah,
who's a stud, including your starting quarterback. And yeah, he's not. I'm not high on Alan Bowman. I'm like you, but he did quarterback them to the Big 12 title game last year.
Oh, well.
That's got to be the reason that people aren't higher on them. And but what gets me is year after year. Every year, people say, "Well, they're not. Oklahoma State's not going to be as good this year," and they end up being as good or better every single time, almost. So I just think that one. I think people might be sleeping on Oklahoma State a little bit because number one, I think Mike Gundy's a hell of a coach.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people don't.
He is.
Oklahoma fans will tell you he's overrated, but Oklahoma State is not an easy place to win. It's not an easy place to recruit. And the dude wins 8, 9, 10 games a year
but he gets in his own way.
At times.
Because I think about the beginning of last year. There is no other way to put this. They were an out and out disaster. I mean, that game against South Alabama at home, just pitiful. And that 3 quarterback rotation was horrible. Yeah. But the ironic part is, I mean, Gunnar Gundy, I guess you could argue has less ability, but I thought Garrett Rangel had the most ability. But like they picked the guy who's kind of the oldest, and everything just kind of stabilized for them at that point. And like the thing was like, Mike, you could have just picked a guy. You had to do this starter, middle reliever, closer deal. Like you had to do that for a month before we could get this thing figured out. It was incredibly strange. But man, once he gets it figured out, it's like, all right, here we go. We're off and running. So
yeah, it's he's baffling. That whole situation is baffling to me. Because was it 3 years ago, their offense was atrocious. And they still went to the Big 12 title game and came close to winning it.
Inches.
Because their defense was so good.
Inches. It's odd to think about these Mike Gundy teams. 2 of them have been to the Big 12 championship game in the last three seasons.
Yeah.
Defense and running the football.
Yep.
A Mike Gundy team, excuse me. And that's credit to him for adapting the team to the roster, adapting what they did to the roster. So it's like, but it also frustrates me because it's like, why couldn't Spencer Sanders have been your quarterback last year? Why did you have to be an a-hole during the bowl season? Because from what I understand, Spencer called them. Robert Allen said this. Spencer called them and asked if he could come back during bowl practice, and Gundy had told them they'd moved on. And it's like, why would you do that? This was the TCU K-State championship season. I guess they won. I forgot how many games they won, but that team was 7-0. Spencer gets hurt in that TCU game, and their season completely shifts. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, I don't know why they didn't bring in somebody else this offseason. I don't know why they didn't let him come back for last season.
I kind of felt bad for him because
I did too.
I mean, he was a young man, and yeah, I know he's an adult. I get he's an adult, but he's also a very young adult.
And people make mistakes.
Yeah, and going into the portal doesn't always mean you're leaving either. I mean, you're supposed to have the option to come, and obviously the coach doesn't have to take you back. I get it, but again, he got in his own way there, and then Spencer ended up going to Ole Miss, and it might have been he might have blew his shot to play at the next level by making that move, and Gundy could have said, "Hey, look, you left. We're not happy that you left. I need to know you're all in." They sit down and have a conversation with the young man and make sure.
Yeah.
And maybe
there was the middle ground there. We could have worked that one out.
Yeah,
and the thing about
make
Spencer,
him earn his spot back. Something.
Yeah, and I think that kid would have because in my opinion, because he was the most valuable offensive player in the conference.
Yeah.
In that season, because you saw what happened without him. They completely fell apart.
Yeah. But I watched that defense. They have a different D coordinator, and their defense was not great. Was not very good last year. But they had a brand new defensive coordinator.
Was just not,
right. They have a new, but almost everybody's back. They were young on defense last year. Nardo's in his second year as a D coordinator. I think they're moving. I heard they were moving Colin Oliver back to his natural position at linebacker.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, at defensive end.
Defensive end.
From linebacker.
Right.
So let him rush the quarterback. So I think they'll be better this year on defense than they were a year ago.
Yeah, I agree.
All they're going to need to do, in my opinion, is run the ball with Ollie Gordon. As long as Alan Bowman can be serviceable and manage the game, I think they can win 10 games again. I really do.
I agree. He's got to take better care of the ball this year.
Agreed. Yeah. Agreed. Appalachia Africa Twin with another $5 donation. He says it's called mullet power, Couz. The Gundy mullet.
Yes, right.
It's something. But anyway, well, man, Josh, listen, I'm gonna call this thing quits here. It's 10:30 here. I gotta hit the sack here shortly. But I appreciate you coming on one more time. Let everybody know where they can find you.
At Josh Neighbors _on X, as well as at NWPod365. Big 12 Watch is on Crystal Ball College Football YouTube channel and wherever you guys get your podcasts. That's all the folks need to know. And I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad we were finally able to catch up with our crazy schedules.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate it. Always enjoy chatting with you and getting your takes.
Anytime.
Because there's not many people that know more about the Big 12 than you do out there. So
appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. So everybody go check Josh out on Crystal Ball College Football, the Big 12 Watch Show. Follow him on X. Check out his work. And Josh, thanks again. And everybody, thanks for tuning into the show tonight. Have a top shelf day or night in Q Country Roads.